My name is Angel Berbarie. I'm a partner at Goranson Bain Ausley. I'm board certified in family law by the Texas Board of Legal Specialization. Today I'm going to be answering the question of whether a business at time of divorce is considered to be community or separate property. At time of divorce, all property is considered community property. That's the presumption under Texas law. To prove a business is separate property, you have to show by clear and convincing evidence that that business was created before marriage or that it was created during marriage and somehow made separate property. To show that a business was created before marriage, you need more than just testimony. You have to pull together the actual documents. This would include things like company agreements, articles of incorporation or organization, stock certificates that have been issued, tax filings, etc. You want to pull together enough information to show that the business was definitely created prior to the marriage. Businesses created during the marriage can also be separate property. But again, just as with showing that you created a business before the marriage, if you've created a business during the marriage, you have to gather the right information to show that it's separate property. If a business was initially capitalized with separate property assets, then you can prove that that business is your separate property. Now, for example, if you had premarital funds or if you inherited money from a loved one and then you used those funds or inherited money to create a business, that can be your separate property. You're going to have to gather all of the information to show that the money that you used to initially capitalize the business was money that you either had before marriage or that you received during marriage by an inheritance. People might think it's simple to show that they had funds prior to marriage, or maybe they inherited funds and they used those funds to capitalize a business. But the difficult part is showing that those funds remain separate. And that's why it's really important to hire a skilled financial expert to trace the funds back to their original origin and to show whether or not any community property accumulated within that account prior to it being used to capitalize the business. This definitely can come as a concern for people that have inherited money or they have premarital funds that they want to make sure remain separate property. And there are some ways to do this. If you have an account that has separate property funds in it, it could be accumulating income by interest or dividends being reinvested. One way to prevent this from happening would be to sweep the account of the income or the dividends to ensure that community property is not building up in that separate property account. Probably the most surefire way of making sure that separate property assets remain separate property would be to do a premarital agreement or a postmarital agreement wherein you and your spouse agree that any income earned on your separate property funds would remain separate property.